Good afternoon again. Thank you very much for taking time out of, I'm sure, your very busy day to join the Fair Chance Partnership Application webinar. My name is Gina Fulbright-Powell, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Programs here at Fair Chance. We appreciate your interest in learning more about the Fair Chance Partnership Program. And today, to help me share information about the program, I have Anjali Nagpaul, who is one of our capacity building specialists, which means she is one of the Fair Chance staff who works with the organizations and executive directors that are accepted into the program. And we have the great pleasure of having Rachael Callahan, who is the Executive Director of Common Good City Farms. And Rachael is a very recent graduate of our program, having finished the program in April of 2016. So she will be sharing firsthand information about her experience. So before we move into the webinar in more detail, I'd like to just give you a little bit of information about the technology that we're using today. You are currently on mute. We do have a chat box which you should be able to access from your screen. We will ask that you provide us with any questions that you might have during the conversation. And at the end of the webinar, we will open up the phone lines for you to verbally ask any questions that you might have. It is also important that you know that this webinar is being recorded for future use. So with that, we will move into the goals and the agenda for our time today. So for the agenda today, for the webinar today, we really want you to walk away from this time with a much clearer understanding of what the Fair Chance Core Partnership model is and how it might benefit you. We also want you to be able to have the information that you need to prepare a high-quality application, as well as hear from Rachael about her experience and suggestions and tips that she might have for your consideration. So in terms of the agenda, we've just gone through the welcome and the introduction. We'll also share a brief overview of the Fair Chance mission, and we'll talk in detail about the partnership model. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Rachael and Anjali will talk about their experience in the partnership program. We will also conclude the webinar with a conversation about the application process so that you will have that clear information available to you. So to talk a bit about Fair Chance. Fair Chance strengthens the sustainability and performance of community-based nonprofits to achieve life-changing results for children and youth living in poverty. And we do that so that each child, particularly in Washington, D.C., has a fair chance to succeed in life. Fair Chance was founded in 2002. Actually, we will be celebrating our 15th year anniversary next year. And as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, we work to leverage the power of community-based organizations so that they can transform the lives of children living in poverty. And so each year we select a group of organizations, nonprofit organizations that are youth serving, who we believe have potential to be very successful, and we offer them a comprehensive program, actually at no cost to them. So when we look at the fabric and the makeup of Washington, D.C., we know that 1 out of every 3 children in our nation's capital live in poverty. And many of the young people living here experience some of the most pressing challenges on a daily basis. And so it's nonprofits like yours that work with these young people to help them meet and overcome these challenges. The greater majority of nonprofit organizations in this country, and perhaps yours, have revenues of less than $1 million. And then 45% of the nonprofits are even smaller, with reported revenues of under $100,000. And as you know, this means that these organizations struggle to meet the ever-growing demand for their services. I am now going to turn the conversation over to Anjali, who will describe in more detail the Fair Chance Partnership. Anjali?
Thank you, Gina. Good afternoon, everyone. The Fair Chance Capacity Building Model provides comprehensive services to improve the sustainability and performance of community-based nonprofits that really are working to support children and youth living in poverty, as Gina mentioned, part of our mission. And so each year we select these nonprofits that have great potential and are likely to benefit most from our intensive holistic capacity building approach. It's a 1-year partnership that is customized based on the individual needs of each organization. 1 capacity building specialist from Fair Chance is assigned to each partner organization, who then works weekly with the executive director. So it's an intensive one-on-one coaching model that requires both Fair Chance and the partner organization to each invest and commit up to about 350 hours in 1 year towards strengthening the partner organization. Fair Chance's outcomes for the partnership program are to ensure that the partner executive directors increase their knowledge, skills, and confidence in leading their organizations, and that as a result of the partnership, their organizations are growing and are more sustainable. We do this by focusing our work together in 8 organizational competency areas. We work on board development, communication and outreach, financial management, fundraising, human resources, leadership development, program evaluation, and strategic planning. These are 8 areas that we feel are critical to the sustainability and effective operations of all nonprofits. Our unique partnership model gets results. Most organizations see some improvement in all 8 competency areas because many of these areas are interrelated. But what we focus on and what we achieve is increased organizational implementation of best practices by at least 25% in 4 areas for every partner organization that we work with. So throughout the partnership, progress along a continuum from not addressing best practices to having best practices that are merging or in practice, and the end goal is that they eventually become institutionalized. And within 5 years of completing the partnership, our alumni report a 50% median increase in revenue and in the number of children and youth they serve. So our partnership program starts with a very rigorous application process and selection process, which we'll discuss in more detail towards the end of this webinar. Once partners are selected and assigned a capacity building specialist, that capacity building specialist conducts a comprehensive assessment of the organization in order to really fully understand the strengths and challenges of that partner and in each of those 8 competency areas. The assessment is then used to identify and prioritize the specific infrastructure supports that the executive director and the capacity building specialist will work on for the rest of the partnership year. At the end of the partnership, we get to celebrate all of our hard work for the year during a graduation ceremony. And at the end of that ceremony, the executive directors and their organizations get inducted into our alumni network. I'm going to turn it back over to Gina, who's going to tell you more about our network and the services available to both our network and partners and what you can expect from the partnership.
Thank you, Anjali. As Anjali mentioned, we do induct our graduates into our network, our alumni network, and this is a part of our philosophy that once a fair chance partner, always a fair chance partner. Fair Chance believes in the ongoing development of our partner organizations, and so we offer a series of different and varying opportunities and have been adding to those. So currently what we provide are workshops, and they're offered throughout the year, and all alumni are eligible to participate these. And again, this is at no cost to you. And that is a fabulous benefit. We have had recent workshops on technology, our customer relations management platforms, and other technology that will be useful to you operating an effective nonprofit organization. On a quarterly basis, our executive director, Gretchen Vanderveer, holds meetings with the executive directors. And these meetings are issue-based, and so they're conversations, new knowledge is imparted, and executive directors have an opportunity to share their thoughts and comments about particular issues. A recent issue has been around the ongoing support of the Washington, D.C. nonprofit organizations that have been funded through D.C.'s investment trust for families and children. So the issues that are discussed are timely and pertinent to the community. We also have what we call an e-forum, which is an online listserv where executive directors have the opportunity to ask questions, share information with others in the network. An example might be if an ED is in the process of considering new healthcare policies for the staff. They might ask a question around recommendations and experiences that other executive directors might have had. So it's an ongoing opportunity for the alumni to network with each other. We also have added, we now have 2 pro bono consultation possibilities for those in our network. The first is that of legal services. We have a large law firm here in the city who very generously supports the partners of Fair Chance. If there are questions around a lease situation, the law firm will review leases and can offer advice to the executive directors on specific terms and that they might find in the lease that might not be beneficial to them. And so there are other legal services that are provided to include a review of bylaws for the board of directors, and the list goes on. We do have a new relationship that continues this year with the Boston Consulting Group. And this is an opportunity for our alumni partners to receive, after the 1 year work with our capacity building staff, if they have additional or new needs. It might be in strategic planning, it might be around support in talent development, it could be support in making financial presentations, analyzing financial information. And so we're very excited to offer this new service, again, at no cost to our graduates and highly skilled individuals on staff with Boston Consulting Group that participate and lead our EDs in this venture. So in our network, we have about 100 organizations that have completed the program, and so we have a good number of the EDs of those programs who do participate in our network services, and so that is an added benefit of being a part of the Fair Chance network once you've graduated, once you've been applied to, been accepted to, and graduated from the program. And again, these services are offered exclusively to the Fair Chance partners and those that have graduated. So we've talked a bit about the partnership. Let's look at that a little more. What to expect in the partnership, and that it's comprehensive, as Anjali described. You're working in 8 areas of organizational competency. It is demanding, and Rachael will share more about those demands. We do ask for your commitment and the commitment of your board and organization to support you in this effort. It is extremely rewarding. Anjali talked about some of the benefits that have been derived from organizations participating in the partnership through increased revenue and being able to serve more children and youth. It's transformative. And Rachael, again, will talk more about how this experience has really contributed to her organization. One of the things we want to be clear with, and that's what the partnership is and what it is not. As I've said a number of times, there's no cost to you if selected for this opportunity. We do value the partnership, the level of services that you get. We do value that at about $75,000 a year. And so this is, as Anjali described, it is customized to meet your specific organizational needs in terms of the type of support that's rendered. It is a thought partnership. The capacity building specialist that you would be working with, as Anjali is one, really serves as a sounding board for you and helps you think through issues. And again, I'm sure Rachael will talk more about that. And the membership into this, being a part of the alumni workshop, the alumni network, is great, and I've just talked a bit about some of those opportunities and benefits. Now, we also want to be really clear what the partnership is not. This is not an extra pair of hands to actually do work. The capacity building specialist works with organizations and EDs to help guide their movement through various steps to build the infrastructure of organizations. And so in a traditional consulting relationship, you have a consultant who comes in, does some work, we consider those deliverables, and they leave. That's not what this is. And again, Anjali and Rachael will describe that relationship in more detail. I did mention that it's comprehensive. Anjali talked about the assessment and the development of the work plan based on the assessment and setting goals for the ED and the organization to achieve by the end of the 1-year partnership. There are weekly meetings, and these meetings may involve other staff, and it may involve other board members. It really depends on what your particular needs are. We mentioned the fact that it's demanding. We ask that all EDs devote a minimum, we ask that they devote up to 8 hours a week, and that is to spend about 2 hours with the capacity building specialist, meeting face-to-face, to complete independent work assignments that the capacity building specialist will ask them to do. We do ask for data submission so that we can be able to report on your progress. We can report on the impact of the partnership. And we do ask that you participate in our network, in the services that I mentioned earlier, the workshops, the executive director, learning community, pro bono services, if that is of interest and need for you. So I'm not going to talk much more about how rewarding and transformative it is. I think it would be much better for you to hear that from Rachael Callahan, the Executive Director of Common Good City Farms, who recently completed the program, and Anjali Nagpaul served as her capacity building specialist. And I'm going to move aside and let them have a conversation to share with you firsthand what the experience is. Anjali, Rachael?
Thank you, Gina. So, Rachael, before we get into discussing your experience in the partnership, can you please share with us just a little bit about Common Good City Farm?
Absolutely. So Common Good City Farm is a nonprofit organization, urban farm, with the mission to create a vibrant, informed, and well-nourished community through urban farming. So we are located in the LaDroit Park neighborhood of Northwest Washington, D.C., and our services include sustainable production of affordable produce on our farm space, distributing that to the community through various programs, and providing education for all ages, including a lot of youth education around healthy living, cooking, nutrition, and some gardening skills as well.
Excellent. Thank you. They're an amazing organization. It was such an honor to work with them. So can you tell us, why did you apply for the partnership?
Absolutely. So there are several different reasons that I decided that this was the right partnership at the right time. Some of them are a little bit more intangible. Essentially, I was at a place where I was feeling like we could be doing better. we are a great organization. Our staff thinks that, our board thinks that, our community was feeling that, our funders were supportive of us. But I knew that we could do better. I knew we could be more, and I knew we could step it up a level. I had been with the organization when I was attending the pre-application webinar. I had been with the organization for 2 full years. I was going into my 3rd. So I had had time to sit with the organization, observe it, think about, you know, what I would have changed originally and how that had shifted after being with the organization for 2 years. I had time to really observe the programs, to get to know the community and our program participants. I had had time to really get a handle on the dynamic between the board and the staff and how I thought that might be able to be improved, things like that. So I had tons of ideas about where I thought we could go as an organization. Also, our board was going through a little bit of a transition. Some of our board members who had been on for a while, their term was up, they were cycling off, including our board chair, so there was a leadership transition that was on the verge of happening. Our community and the folks that we serve have been changing. We are in an area, as you all know, Detroit Park, that is rapidly gentrifying. So we were at a point where we needed to poke our heads out of the sand and say, let's evaluate where we are and see how we could do better. So that is really what led me to be interested in this partnership.
Excellent. Thank you. And I would just add that in speaking with some of our other alumni, you know, many of them talk about their decision to apply for the partnership in the same way that you do, right? Figuring out if it's the right time and the right space for their organization, and where their organization is kind of in its history, and to really build infrastructure and to invest in infrastructure. So, you know, organizations that are still grappling with getting their programming off the ground can't benefit from this intensive partnership in the same way. And so, you know, we've set up some application criteria based on that Gina will discuss a little bit later. But I just want to stress how important it is for the executive directors out there to really think about where they are in their own leadership and where their organization is, and to make sure that this is the best time to take advantage of this opportunity.
And can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Also, we were at a situation where when my first year with the organization, we were having some budgetary issues and ended up ending the year in a deficit that year, and then had been slowly growing towards a more sustainable place. So I felt confident entering the partnership year that I wouldn't have to be so concerned with budgetary issues. We felt more stable than we had in a long time financially, and that's just a burden to take off, so I knew I'd be able to focus on some of the other work, because as a small nonprofit, you often spend a lot of your time focused solely on what money is going to come in the door that year, and we thankfully weren't in that place in such a pressing way.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that in. And I just want to add too that, you know, some organizations, you know you're at the right time and space for it, and you still don't have the money to hire consultants with the expertise in all of these areas. And so that's part of what makes this partnership so important for small organizations, and why so many of them think of applying to us. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you know, that your board was at a transition point, but what were some of the other organizational development areas that you knew needed to be addressed during the partnership year at the time that you applied?
So when I was applying, so I was really excited to see the 8 different areas of competency. As this being my first time as an executive director, I had not even necessarily gotten to the point in my professional development where I would have been able to articulate our needs in those categories. But when looking at the application, I said, yes, I need all of that. That is right. But as Anjali will probably be able to attest, I came into the application process and then the partnership pretty focused. I really felt like I wanted to achieve through this partnership some very foundational milestones for us as an organization so that we could take that and then continue to grow once the partnership was over. So we ended up focusing on board development, on strategic planning, which was a bear, and I will talk more about it, that's a big one, fundraising, and then we also touched on other areas such as program evaluation and human resources and a couple of other different areas here and there. But really the strategic planning became the heart of our work together.
Right. And do you want to go there right now and talking about the strategic planning?
I think that we can, well, we have a strategic plan, so we, like, as I mentioned before, we our neighborhood, and we're very neighborhood focused as an organization, was experiencing, continues to experience gentrification. And we had been around for 7 years at the time that we applied. So long enough that we knew who we were, knew what we were doing well, and but we hadn't revisited the mission. And we hadn't revisited the vision in light of the change in our community and in light of what we had developed as just being an organization for that long. So the first thing that we did was, or I guess one of the main takeaways was to revise our mission, and we have a new mission now and a new vision, and through that followed the full strategic plan for the 3 years. And that took a lot of soul searching for us as an organization. And I'll probably talk about it later, but when Gina was talking about this being a thought partnership, it really is that. So I think for us as an organization, for me and for my board, having the strategic plan in hand is quite an accomplishment, and we're really excited about it. But I think the greater benefit for us was the process of coming to that strategic plan. It was all of the conversations that we had. It was all the thinking that we collectively did. Was much more valuable probably than the piece of paper.
And I'll just add, because I think, oftentimes people see strategic planning and think, oh yes, that's what we need. Strategic planning is so time intensive that we don't always do that within the partnership. It really depends on whether or not where your organization is, and if you need to build up other supports before you can do that. So, when you embark in strategic planning, you need to have a strong, engaged board. And so if your organization isn't there, we're not going to focus on doing a strategic plan, even though you may come into the partnership feeling like that's what I really want out of this. But again, our focus is to really work in 4 areas, and the degree that's required to do strategic planning well can be challenging within 1 year in addition to those other 3. So I just want to throw that out there, that you guys got a strategic plan, but we didn't actually finish that plan. You guys were left with writing it.
Right.
So, it was part of the process, but it wasn't like hiring a consultant to do a strategic plan.
Absolutely. And I'll take this opportunity to say that I think what made the partnership successful for us is, as I said when I was completing the application, I had a really clear idea of what I wanted to accomplish in that year. And I think that focus really helped our year together, and I think it helped you understand where I was coming from and what I was hoping to get out of it. But I had to be flexible because I didn't realize, because I just wasn't thinking about it, that we can't do all of the program evaluation work until we have our mission clear. And so I was a little bit wanting to put the cart before the horse. And I think the beauty is that the capacity building specialist, Anjali in my case, really helped talk you through that and guide you through that. And so I think some clarity and some vision, as well as some flexibility, are really key.
Absolutely. And I appreciate how flexible you were. So how did you work with me when we met each week? Can you sort of share what was our relationship like?
Wonderful. I will say that the weekly meetings with Anjali was by far my favorite part of the partnership. I really enjoyed our time together so much. So in terms of what exactly it looked like was a little bit different depending on what we worked we're working on. So sometimes Anjali sent me home with a template and some prompts, and I had homework to do. And then the following session would be discussing what I completed. But it wasn't in the sense of checking off that I had done it. Great, this is complete, this is complete. It was looking at what I filled in and saying, and why did you put that there? And then that made me say, why did I put that there? And again, it's this thought partnership, and it's really talking through some of my preconceived notions and really talking through why I think the way I think and all of that kind of stuff. And so having that space to talk was really great. Other times, depending on the project, we would sit together, and sometimes we both had sit across the table, both of us working on our laptops, or sometimes around one laptop, and really sit there when we were doing our fundraising plan, for example, and do math together and run data together. It really kind of depended on what the project was. And then I will say that sometimes, and Anjali was fantastic about this, I came in and to each session, or most sessions, and was ready to get down to business and, check things off my to-do list. And Anjali would take a moment and say, how are you? What else is going on outside of the scope of our work? And then that led me to be able to talk with her about other things that were happening in the organization and just other things that were on my mind, and have that space where it was focused and we got results. I'm really happy with what we got out of our partnership in terms of deliverables, but to also have that space as an executive director, which is a bit of a lonely job, to talk about things that I wouldn't bring up with my staff, or I wouldn't bring up with my board, and to be able to have the support of Anjali, whether that was giving advice, giving words of encouragement or consolation, or just to have me have the space to talk was really lovely. And I think that doing that in a structured way, where it's not just chit-chatting, it's constructive, but it's still not so task-oriented all of the time, is a really special part of the capacity building model that Fairchance has.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that I love about being a capacity building specialist is really the relationship that we get to have with each executive director that we work with. It's something that's very unique, I think, to Fairchance's model. And we're together for an entire year, right? So in some ways, we really just get to learn each other and how we communicate and how we best learn and how we best work together. And it's a really special relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's also part of what makes our model unique is that, we do this work plan at the beginning of the year, but we recognize, because we've been there, right? I'm a former executive director. There are other folks on staff who've been executive directors or who've been, working in organizational development for years. And so we get it. And we know that the best laid plans go haywire. So to have a work plan for, 8 months, things happen in the nonprofit cycle and life, and we have to address those. So we as capacity builders show up very flexible, because we know that you can't focus on, whatever we have in the work plan if you've got a staff crisis that just arose that you're thinking about. We want to make sure that you're in the right space to be productive in our partnership, and we're there with you every week to make sure that happens. So can you talk about how you managed to find the time to be in this partnership in addition to everything else that you have to do as an executive director?
It was a challenge. I think adding anything new to your plate is challenging. It's a little bit like, why? Why would I do this to myself? But I happen to work really well when I'm under deadline or when I have to use my time efficiently. So it suited my work style very well, I will say. Also, we were at a point as an organization where, and I'll say we're quite small. We're 2 full-time, 2 part-time staff. But but the second part-time staff came on right before this partnership. So I knew that I had a little bit of support there that I had not previously had. But I had to be committed to it. I applied for this partnership because I really felt strongly that we could be better, we could be stronger, and I, as an executive director, was committed to bringing those results to the organization. And so you just have to make time, you have to prioritize. Again, the flexibility that the capacity builders provide is helpful. We did not meet the week of my major fundraising event. We probably didn't meet the week before it. So there is the flexibility there. But I also will say I was already thinking about a lot of these things. I was already, starting to do research on, I don't know, how to re-engage your board, for example. And so instead of me doing that in a really flighty way, it was nice to be able to have, to go through some of these, thoughts in a structured environment. So it was almost saving me some time in some ways, because the capacity builders have so many resources at hand, are so knowledgeable, and are able to pull up templates, for example, instead of me investing my time looking at templates that I don't know are proven successful or not. So in a way, I was already doing some of this work.
Absolutely, and that's what most of the executive directors who've been through the partnership say. You have to make the time for it, and really be committed and prioritize this work. But all of the things in all of those 8 areas are things that executive directors are responsible for. Mm-hmm. So these are already on your mind and on your plate to address, and you just have a partner that can hopefully make it easier.
Exactly.
So what role did your board play, and how has the partnership influenced their involvement in the organization post-partnership?
I was so impressed with my board throughout this process.
Me too.
So great. So the board was, in general, supportive of me as the executive director, in general supportive of the idea of us applying for this. I will say that I didn't totally loop them in. I chatted with my board chair, because you'll mention that that's a requirement, about how I wanted to do this partnership, and she, read the materials and said, that sounds great. But I didn't really fully engage the rest of my board pre-application, and I would recommend that you do that, because regardless of whether or not they end up having to do a lot of work in the partnership, I think partnership is a big deal, and they need to have your back and really understand it, not just in terms of the fact that you have more work to do as an executive director, but just the fact that they need to be proud of what you're going through and proud of what you accomplish at the end of that. So I sort of completely filled them in after we had gotten the partnership. And they were excited, but they didn't necessarily know they were going to be doing a lot of work. And then as our work plan evolved, we really settled, when we were going through the assessment process, settled on the fact that board development and strategic planning were going to be part of our scope of work. Both of those are heavy lifts on the board. More meetings, homework, more thinking. And they responded really well to that. I think that they really trusted and respected Anjali, and were really happy to have her guide us through some of those big picture conversations. I think that having a third party come in and say, you guys are great, but you could be better, and the board, you should be, for example, setting annual goals for yourself, or whatever it may be, is easier to hear for some board members coming from an outside person rather than coming from the ED. And so I was really impressed with the work that they put in. It really energized them. It reinvigorated them. It clarified their roles and responsibilities as board members, and it clarified our relationship, my relationship with them. And again, we were in transition, moving from a more hands-on volunteer board to a more governing and fundraising board. It's just the growing pains of our organization, so the timing was right there, and to have the support in making that transition was really great for us. And they're all really excited now. We just ended the partnership and in April, and we are all doing our work to keep the momentum going. And everybody on the board feels really committed to not wanting to lose the momentum.
I'm so happy to hear that. So I kind of want to wrap up, our conversation, but was just you've talked about some of the benefits that your organization had as a direct result of the partnership. Is there anything else that you want to add in addition to what you've already discussed around how you guys benefited from this partnership or how you personally benefited from it?
Sure, and I'll try to be brief. So we have our sort of tangible benefits. We have our strategic plan. We did an employee manual. We have a fundraising, annual fundraising template that we use every year. So we have those things, which is fantastic. I think for us, it's more of those intangible benefits. I would say that I feel as though I came into my own as a leader through this partnership. Whereas before I had a lot of ideas, I didn't know or feel confident in taking on that leadership role, especially with the board. And I found that through this partnership, and that is unquantifiable, but I think resulted in a few more grants, or at least bumping up some of our grants, because I have the confidence to ask for more money and things like that. So I definitely think going into this partnership, knowing that you will have tangible deliverables that come out of it, but so many intangible, steps that will, make you stronger as an ED, especially if you're willing to put in the work, and ultimately make your organization stronger. And for us, this was a catalyst to really seeing a huge increase and strengthening of not only our fundraising, but also of our programs, because this was step one. And now we are well equipped to take on the other steps without their chance, but
we're still here.
Yes, still with the support. And I will say the alumni network has been really useful and really helpful.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate your experience and giving our audience that opportunity. I'm going to turn it back over to Gina, who's going to talk about the application process.
Okay, Rachel and Anjali, thank you very much. I hope that the audience found that very beneficial to hear firsthand the experience, so we appreciate that. So if this sounds like the right opportunity for you, and that this is the right time to take advantage of this type of opportunity, then I ask you to hang on just a little longer with our time here to learn more about the application process itself. I will begin this by saying we take this process, the application review process, very seriously. We are investing a lot in you as an executive director and into your organization. It's the time of our staff, Anjali and the other capacity building specialists, the time of the rest of the staff here at Fair Chance at no cost to you except the cost of your time and your energy and your willingness to learn and grow and make changes. And we are willing to make that investment in you if you're willing to make that investment in yourself and meet us in terms of the shared commitment. So in terms of eligibility requirements, your organization must be a 501c3 organization. The executive director must be full-time. Because of the time commitment that Anjali and Rachael in particular have spoken about, you really can't devote up to 8 hours a week if you're only working 20 hours a week and run an effective organization. We ask that you have been as executive director in your position for at least 6 months by the deadline of the application, and that is because, as Rachael talked about, we want to make sure that you have a good sense of the organization. And so 6 months is not really a long time, but we do feel that in the fast pace of nonprofits, if you've been there 6 months, you've pretty gotten the hang of it. We also ask, and this is whether you're paid or not. We know that some organizations are building and the executive directors may not be paid. We do ask that you have a board of directors, a functioning board of directors with a minimum of 3 members. And we also ask that we've found in the past that oftentimes the executive director, also for really small startup nonprofits, that the executive director is serving as the ED and the board chair. In this model, that doesn't work. So you need to have an individual, a different individual, to serve as the chair of the board. And again, we ask that the executive director make the commitment to the requirements of the program, and that the board chair also make the same commitment to support the executive director in this venture. And then there are a number of activities that we require you to participate in, and I'm looking at the clock and knowing that I need to move through quickly. So we are looking for organizations who have programs and providing their services that they're offering for at least a year. We are looking for organizations whose mission or at least one of their program addresses the needs of children and youth, and that we look at that age ranges 0 to 24 children and youth that are living in poverty. We will also give priority consideration to those organizations that have at least that are serving at least that 50% of the children and youth that they're serving are DC residents. It's not a requirement. We do give priority consideration though. And we really do look for organizations that have the ability to be sustainable throughout the partnership. So they have the funds and the resources necessary to support their operations for a year. And that's because we don't want to divert the attention of the work to dealing with a financial crisis. And so we also recognize that many organizations are a part, many nonprofits are part of national organizations. And if that is the case, we want to ensure that as an affiliate or a chapter of a national organization, that your operation is locally focused, that you are addressing local needs in the local context, that you do have a board that is local or at least locally focused. And we also ask that you be able to clearly identify, and this is everyone, to be able to clearly identify at least 4 of those 8 areas of organizational competencies that Anjali mentioned, and that you have the sufficient staff and resources to deliver services in DC. So there are a number of documents that you will be required to provide. in your application. We actually have all of these listed in the actual application form itself, so I won't take the time to go through that now. Because I want to ensure that we allow time for you to ask questions. We do ask that you respond to the eligibility requirements. You'll have to provide your contact information, information about your organizations, its overview, its mission, its structure, its leadership, information about your fundraising structure and financial management programs and services, and we do ask for specific program data as well as opportunities that you are looking forward to in terms of growth. So now with that, and also let me say that if you have questions after this for any of the communication that you've received from Fair Chance about this process, you know that you can pose questions by sending an email to applications@fairchancedc.org. And so we'll open the lines now, the phone lines now, to see if you might have any questions at this point.
And we actually had 2 questions that came in through the chat box. So the first one is, can you apply if your organizational revenue is over $1 million? And the answer to that is yes, you can apply. We will say, though, that our commitment is to organizations that couldn't otherwise afford this type of work being done. So it depends on how far over $1 million we're talking about, and how many programs you have and where your resources are. But we want to make sure that we're really providing this, since it's no cost to people that can't afford it. So it really depends on what your $1 million looks like. The second question.
Yes. What is the average age of organizations who were accepted? And I think that there's been a pretty big range. We've had organizations that are probably as young as, what would you say, 3 years?
Probably 2 to 3
years, to organizations that are over 20 years in age. And so, and this is another beauty of the program, that it's customized, because when you work with organizations with that broader range in terms of age of existence, their needs are really very different. Are there any other questions that you would like to verbally ask? The phone lines are open. Well, if there are no more questions, again, we thank you very much for your interest in the Fair Chance Partnership Program. Thank you for your time. And again, know that you can ask any questions that you might have by sending an email to applications@fairchancedc.org. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you.